Okay, I'm going to get my mic unmuted here and get the scene changed over. And really, I was a little bit rushed. I didn't get anything changed to my set or anything like that. And in fact, let's flip it over to the okay. Everything seems good on audio. At least I'm working with the lapel mic again, and it's not the ideal one that I want. I'm getting some more. I think I even had one of these that I ordered buried away. I mean, it doesn't hurt, I guess, to have extras out there. I think I could go through and use my old one, maybe. But there's times when I think the wire breaks connection. Yeah, sure, you can ask questions. In fact, I have a few things to throw out as well. I was saying that I didn't have time to change my bench. This is a little bit of a planning live stream, I guess. I'm interested in hearing what people think of kind of whether I've been maybe too focused on a little bit of the mid-range systems lately with the terminals and with the AS400 and with that sort of thing, even with the 5494, that I hope to have that new old stock 5494 where we can do an unboxing next weekend. And I do have some areas I'm also thinking of. There's kind of some back channel thoughts of some of the stuff that's going to come up. I've talked about, and even there's been a lot of previous videos where I've even said I'm going to get into certain angles, and I haven't addressed those yet so far. So I'm just wanting to hear it all. If anybody's got anything to participate and kind of listen to the viewers this time around, and I do. I'll talk about some other aspects as well. And while we're just waiting for any questions to come in, I want to throw a question out to everybody, and that's in regards to my recent post on the YouTube community for the channel. I've got that. In fact, the easy way to do it is just to grab it right off the top here. It's in the anti-static wrap, and it's got these. He's got these warranty of void if removed. And even this upside down one, the same way. It looks like they're both sides to a label. In fact, get to where I'm not chasing my tail here on this. And I mean, they have the serial number there. Like the serial number is a big thing. I mean, you could go through and reproduce this label maybe. And I don't have any idea of who put this on the board. It's an IBM adapter. It's not doesn't look like an IBM label. And it's the thing that I noticed, that it is it's meant to conceal components on the adapter, and so that it presumably can't be copied, or it would void the warranty. So people would be worried about voiding the warranty. And I wanted to ask if anybody has ever heard of a court case that where it's been said that the warranty is void on an item for removing that sticker. I want to know legal precedent. I want to know, and of course, I'm not just talking about the U.S. I'm talking about any place out there in the world. If there's been any instance where people have heard where removing that label voids a warranty for an item. I'm going to answer questions I'm seeing come up. What video made your channel more popular than ever? And actually, right now, and I'd have to look again. I'm 830 something, low number, like 834, 833, 832, something like that. And my subscriber level right now seems to be less than a subscriber per day. One subscriber maybe in a day, maybe not. And so it seems like it's growing a little bit slower, but then again, I'm not having an instance where, like, Curious Mark going through and giving a link to the channel or anything else. And I mean, I think that subscriber base is growing from me putting out videos, because I will see the instance where I put out a video, and I may be over analyzing this or something too, but it seems like after I put a video out, that stuff is coming up. It's being it's at least going into people's feeds where that seems to pull in that subscriber. And so, yeah, it seems like it's just growing just by a little bit right now. And it's even funny because the other channel I'm going to watch a little bit later, Mike's Mac Shack, we've been kind of leapfrogging each other a little bit too. He had just a little bit of a few subscribers below me, and then I gained a few and got above him, and then he gained some more and got more subscribers than me. Now, and again, I mean, and Retrotrack Chris has warned me in the past, and don't overanalyze this, don't get in there. And sometimes that's just my a little bit of my compulsive or my overthinking nature, where I'll get in there and I think a lot of when I see probably a change, it's really not so much. And a lot of time, if you just look too close, you'll see YouTube will go through and you'll lose even a subscriber or two. Your number will decrease by a count of 2 or even 3 sometimes. And you're like, oh my gosh, you know, people are abandoning the channel. They're leaving everything else. And I think it's just how YouTube goes through and pulls that count. And you can have accounts that go through and rather than unsubscribe, they go wrong with Google in general, or that may have been just some shill account that was set up for other purposes that happened to subscribe to your channel, that, you know, something that they were caught or something else, and they got bumped off of Google. And yeah, you don't ever want to get in there and overanalyze things, and you just want to be, it's maybe like the stock market. You want to sit back and you realize that the growth is going to be slow over time, kind of slow and steady, maybe a little bit more, you know, than you wanted, but it does increase over time. And really my advice for starting YouTubers is get started early. At least get a little bit of content out there. Don't worry about the level of it or anything else. Just throw out some initial videos. Start working with larger channels. Start figuring out how you can develop your channel and what you want to do. And the longer you have that channel, the more potential you have to get viewers over time. And yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the bots, Chris, because I almost in an early nature I was like, it's just my nature to reject bots and to go through the spam content, the everything else, to go through and with the IT angle, you want to get those unknown aspects out away from affecting, and so I would go through and like a spam content, and it's been a number of months that I would go through and post a video, and then within minutes of it going up, there'd be a spam comment that would come up, and I would go through and report that or whatever else, and it's almost like, hey, that's that's another possible viewer, another possible subscriber, whatever else. Even though it's automated, it helps up my count, and my count is, I mean, I like having live subscribers. I like having people out there that they're gaining something from my content. But in the true nature of something, a goal like hitting 1,000 subscribers, which was an earlier goal, but YouTube changed it luckily enough that I'm able to make community posts and things like that, like I really wanted to do. And so I don't know if that's necessarily a big goal in my mind anymore, but I'm just saying that those automated numbers could help increase or could help viewership or something else to your channel. And it's the other aspect of YouTube, I say, is in addition to working with bigger YouTube channels, with having those cheerleaders out there that kind of help you, like Chris has been to my channel, and pushing me along and giving me a little bit of feedback when I feel down, when I have a machine that goes through and I have a power supply that dies or something else that just demoralizes me, of keeping me, keep pushing on and keep getting me back in the game. And the other aspect there is that you want to hit just any social media that's out there. You want to hit any the Instagram, the Facebook, all the necessary evils that way, of getting your name out there and getting that brand. And what I hope that I've done at this point is everything out there, every platform, even if I don't necessarily use it, I've got that IBM Museum brand name, that name that's out there in that form on every place it can be. And so just getting your name out there, getting a links page out there that that people can go through and find all the aspects, even Twitter, to get out the content out there. And I know that there's people that go through and they use these platforms more than others. Another angle for me would be Twitch. I haven't gone through to go through and all the other forums that are out there or other places that I could go through and do a little bit better development. And the thing I really need to do is get my website going through, and I want to get it to more being like a blog entry of some of the stuff that I'm working on for the channel and on the side, just to kind of keep people up to date, and a little bit of notes on the side that I can get that participation back, that feedback back from people, on various things, to really know what the interest is out there. I'm not going to be a populist. I'm not going to go with where I think the interest is going to be, what's going to pull more subscribers. I'm going to go to the places where I am interested in, and just hope that other people are interested in as well, or that I can provide some feedback for it. And in a lot of cases, it may not even be areas that I know very well. As I've languished a little bit on the mid-range systems, and the getting back into those areas is a little bit of a learning experience for me. Even some of the aspects that I know better, or used to do a lot back in the day, the assembly language programming, the working on the PS2s, there's been a lot of aspects that I've forgotten. I've been away from for enough time that I'm having to go through and do a little bit of relearning. The other aspect I've got to go through and do here, I got to get this place organized a little bit more, because I'm really kind of cluttered, and that goes through and can halt certain aspects of how I go through and get things up on the bench and get them open and everything else, to and just generally working and having a space around me. And I've got enough space that I could get in play, but it's just that disorganized state, and that's a little bit of how I am. I'm disorganized where I'm working on a lot of stuff sometimes, and I need to focus on one particular area sometimes, and to go a little bit further with it. And basically to go through and wrap it up, or to come to a little bit more completion step before I move on to something else. And there may even be aspects of the studio aspect in particular, where I may go through and relocate home, is what I'm planning, because I have an optimal room that's presentation minded right off the bat, and to get into that place and to have a little bit actually more. I've heard other YouTubers talk about having that space behind the camera as well. In other words, I'm close in on my bench here. I really don't have. It was just a natural place. I put the backdrop behind me and have the bench arranged and things like that. That it's really kind of constraining space sometimes, and I need to move that around a little bit more. The space I'm thinking of at home, I've just got to reclaim that and go through there and get that set up again to what I had originally planned for it, to move forward with that. So you may see some, and these are not going to be quick changes. It's just what I look at down the road. Maybe at the point where I'm the channel is at a 2-year anniversary or something else, I'll be able to get to that point, and that might be the range where I'm at 1,000 subscribers or whatever, and really can expand out a little bit more, and may look at even having the space to maybe I need to bring in a little bit more professionalism and go through and edit videos and kind of get on a little bit better organization of going through and doing that. The clutter here, in fact, I've backed up. I need to get some manual scan too. There's a lot of side areas. I mean, the channel is on video. There's a lot of stuff that I necessarily can't get on video. That would be the reason I'm looking at expanding the website. Just letting people knowing what's going on otherwise, instead of me being in front of the camera for being on video, because in particular that documentation aspect. And I had somebody, a video I made several months ago of the Intel above board, and they were having a hard time. Their adapter doesn't have any switches on it. And I went through, and this is about the time I went to attend VCF East. They were saying, hey, I'm having trouble with this adapter, and I promise, hey, as soon as I get back, I'll go through and scan that manual, and we'll get you through this and get that adapter working for you. And I haven't still, I've got over to where I have that stuff boxed up, haven't pulled it out and got it scanned, and that could be helping someone to go through and get what they're trying to work on a little bit better. A lot of the mid-range and even the 3270 emulation, I've got programs that have manuals and diskettes. Normally doing the imaging the diskette is very easy, but scanning the manuals is a little bit more challenging. And I've got to go through and even finish off some of the manuals. It amazes me because we just did the multi-protocol adapter, and Thomas did a really good addition of that adapter onto his Ardent Tool site. And I mean, I threw some pictures that somebody else did over to him and everything else, and a little bit of information, but Lewis Olin helped a lot, gave him dug up a lot of information. And I was sure that we had that adapter listed before, but it for some reason got overlooked, and I think in particular it was looked at that really people didn't know a use case for it. And with the program that I'm going through and trying to work with and scan the manual, I scanned part of the manual. I need to scan the rest of it. I need to scan the technical reference, but this is a use case for it, and it has the technical reference, and that's, well, maybe it's about only a third of that size, but I need to scan. That's technical enough in nature that I need to get that scanned in. I've got the diskettes imaged, but this provides that really in-depth information of what the program does. And I've got so many other manuals I still have sealed that I need to go through and get scanned. Just because that I'm building up too much of a backlog. And so I don't know who was here to hear my earlier question. I did have some more. I did have some other thoughts that I asked a question back to the general audience of if anybody's ever heard of a warranty being voided by removing a label off of a product. We, particularly us in the computer industry, and we used to see, back when we used to see this all the time with that warranty void if removed stickers, and they concealed components. They were meant to mask, what the chip was that was underneath that. And so if you peel it, and then at least this one, it goes through and it's revealed a little bit. The sticker's in the wrong place to conceal what that chip truly is. Try and hold it steady enough and not be jittery or anything else like that. And as I was commenting earlier, that's not from IBM. This is an IBM adapter. And I was thinking that there's consultants out there, sometimes they put parts in that they didn't want you to know that it was an IBM part that they were sourcing. They didn't want they went through and they had a markup of the price, and they that value added service of them going through and using it. And hello, Michael. I'm going to do a link to Tom's page because I thought it was great for all that, for what he did. It gives something for my center console to do too. I'm going through and I'm using my screens a little bit better today in throwing up the YouTube on one side, the Facebook on the other side. I should probably get up my have it start looking through my mail. I looked at a little bit of stuff earlier, but just kind of trying to catch up on my day. But Thomas went through and he's got it under communications adapters, and he even did a wonderful job on the the System 36, System 38 emulation adapter, workstation adapter. He did a real good job of that. There's his page he did on the multi-protocol adapter, and of course the diagrams there. He covers what those component identifiers are for the chips. So it's like those stickers don't really. And I need to go through and I'll peel the stickers off of mine to go through and have it look a little bit better, that I can take some other pictures of it. So another question is anybody else excited for seeing the unboxing of the 5494 next week? I hope that, and it should be here by that time. By everything I know and how things are shipped, it should be able to reach me by then. It's marked initially as arriving on that that day of the live stream, next Saturday on the 20th. And of course UPS, as I typically see it here, is mid to late afternoon a lot of the time. Wonder what the most difficult in terms of imaging and handling it, storage media you've had to deal with. 2.88 floppies, 8-inch disc, and the like. And so I've seen a little bit of discussion before on, and even Adrian Black has gone through, and he talked about going through and getting the old 8-inch diskette drives working for, I think he was working on like a TRS 80 or something like that. And those old Shugart 8-inch diskette drives. And I made a little bit of comment on that video. It's where the IBM format on the System 34 was at 1.2 megabyte diskette, and they even had the System 34 where you had a 10-disc magazine that you could insert, and it would auto-load those diskettes. It would go through, like if you had, I think if you had a program or IPL sequence, you could go through and you could tell the machine, hey, load this disk, and then switch to this disk, and it would go through and just auto-load and eject those diskettes. And I do have 8-inch diskettes. I've got them in boxes. I've got, for of course, the IPL process. We may get into that with the System 36 units I have. I have a couple 5363 units, which is a late model System 36. And even that's so late a model for System 36 that some of those were even starting to be marked as the into the AS400 series, or the initial AS400s looked a lot like them. There's I have even a couple of AS400s that are the 9404. And so even pulling those out, and they're a little bit bigger than the 9406 170 that I have behind me. And of course, that's a small AS400 of the later I series too. But and then what I'm meaning to get to is that those 8-inch diskettes, there's been recent talk of going through and imaging those. Say the 5494, as we discovered with that live stream, it's got that AD diskette. It's got that 2.88 megabyte diskette. Now the new old stock 5494 that I'm getting in, it has, and that's what I was interested too, is because it has 2 diskettes of each type. It's got 2 diskettes of the system and 2 diskettes of the that are regular 1.44 megabyte format that are the utility diskette. But say if I were to have something go wrong with the system diskette, how would I go through and be able to re-image that diskette? And really the only alternative, that 2.88 megabyte media existed for the most part in the later IBM PS2s. And so having one of those machines around, it's funny that even having my later so-called tweener system, that I wasn't, that it's got a conventional 1.44 megabyte diskette drive. And that's gone the other way to where there's those double density diskettes as well. And IBM made a lot of option diskettes that were the 720 KB format. And you know, there's people that say, well, I can go through and I could cover that density select or go through. But even some of the newer systems and those USB diskette drives don't work with the 720 KB format. Windows XP in the graphical environment doesn't work with the 720 KB. And you think, how much space did they gain by stripping those features out of there, and you know, to have it to where it only supported the 1.44? It's funny because the size parameters left in there, when the only size is the 1. You only have 1 selection for size in that graphical environment. And even within the command line, you've got to add more switches just to get 720 KB compatibility, and it still fails. There's the imaging, the older 5 1/4 diskettes, and I have the Model 30 for that. I do have that 4869 external drive. I could go through and image those well enough. The packages that IBM did along this timeline of the remote 5250 emulation program, they have both the 5 1/4 and the 3.5 inch diskettes in the back. And you know, the 720 KB diskette is the same contents as the 2 5 1/4, you know, diskettes instead of the 360 KB. So this is meant for like the XT class sort of system, and you have the SDLC adapter that was 8-bit, and then you have the 3.5 inch that you could use even on the Model 30 or Model 25, since it was 720 KB, or the later microchannel PS2s, or the other microchannel PS2s, with that multi-protocol adapter. So I don't know if I'm getting to the point of the hardest media really to back up is probably going to be that 8-inch format. I haven't personally gone through and worked at that angle, although it's likely that that'll have to be addressed. I know Chris Singleton has gone through, and he's looking at a lot of that area with what he's doing of getting those 8-inch diskettes that get rebuilt, even reading the contents and being able to analyze what those are. So that is a big aspect. And in more particular in the mainframe and mid-range system, those tape drives, even this free spooling tape or a cartridge tape drive, and that's the irony, is among all your formats out there, even a CD-ROM, or its bigger cousin, the DVD-ROM, those ultimately are supposed to degrade a little bit over time. They will go through, besides when you use them, getting scratched up and that coating and things like that on them, or the material they're made out of, getting scratched and basically getting made unreadable. The stored properly, tape drives are supposed to be the longest media that goes through, computer media that will go through and not necessarily degrade or be affected, as long as it's stored properly. And we used to do at work, we had the cartridge drives for our Dell servers, and going through and doing daily backups and having that grandfather, father, son tape sequence where you had, and we didn't even go through and necessarily store the tapes off-site. And the one thing is that you want to drill too, to go through and to plan. When I say you drill, I mean to go through and conduct exercises, making sure that you could restore that content back from the tape drives too. But there's, getting that media restored. I even saw a post yesterday, was a guy that used to run the old BBS systems. And he even developed some programs for that, some content for his BBS, that later on he lost his copies, his local copies they had. And so he's going to and asking the community, did anybody do backups for what I did back in the day? He's interested in restoring that content, of getting that content onto more newer media, or being able to get it back to a place where you can analyze it and maybe rewrite it and things like that. I'm even the same nature. I've got some old programs that I need to find where I've stuck them away. I had a Windows 3.1 program called Maximize, that even for the accessories, you could go through and you could modify the launch string within Windows 3, 3.0 and 3.1, that it would launch whatever program in a maximized window automatically, rather than going through and launching it kind of in a windowed view, and then you'd have to click on the maximize. And I just went through, and it was real easy to knock out in Visual Basic for Windows of how it would be launched. Not really all that much, but who knows where I archived that program. Could I go through and rewrite it this way? Yeah, probably so, if I could study and things like that. There was even the SCSI microcode, that program initially. I think there's copies of that out there, but I've tried to locate some of the stuff there so I can resume from that, and I'm not really finding it at hand or anything like that as well as I'd like. So there is an effort out there to archive that content and to be able to. I think it's going to be more of an issue once these things like the AS400s and System 36s and 34s, once you start working with those to get those back online, it's going to come to where there's going to have to be a method to work with those 8-inch diskettes that we can restore media to them. Or who knows, maybe that's some thing that a GoTech could be designed. And I made that comment of the 1.2 megabyte on the System 34 because all IBM did was shrink that down to 5.25 format for the IBM AT to have that 1.2 megabyte 5.25 diskette. And so there, maybe there's some abilities to move between the media like that. Now the 5494, as we get deeper into that, it's really kind of interesting because that utility diskette, that's that 1.44 megabyte diskette, you have the ability, you go through and you actually generate the config on that diskette, and then you go through and work with putting it on the diskette drive for the 5494. The 5394 is close to that as well, where it has the diskette drive, and this is just leading a little bit ahead of where you had console ports and things like that. I've got to go through for the console port of this, of the 2210, to go through and see what format that console port really does. There's a menuing system. The 8275 that I have behind things here, it's actually, and it has effectively, I think, the web page that it does, like the old switches used to do. Used to have, you could go through and configure them with an old web browser. In fact, I keep, you want to keep Internet Explorer 3 or 4 or 5 around, and that's why you have those little thin client terminals around too, with the serial ports, is being able to configure those old switches and things like that, do things with that. But I think it's a menu utility that's on for the console application of the 8275. So I've got to see what console formats those have and the ability to work with those machines there to get a configuration off of them, and back onto the units themselves too. So I'm just kind of watching the time here. I'll go through and just do the live stream for an hour, I think. I'm just putting out feelers out there of content that people may want to see. If they think, I'm telling people that I'm going to go back and I'm going to address and have more computer content, and for the ability of people to see that, do some benchmarking on old systems. The content that a lot of computer enthusiasts really like to see, and so that is that's planned. I can only go the mid-range stuff for so long. I mean, I'm not gonna keep on that. I'm gonna open that up a little bit more. We're gonna see networking stuff like the stuff I've pulled out to go through and work with that again. But also those the system information tool programs I'm working on, and we had a lot of the back channel communication of the last week or two has been on that what's called the system descriptor table, or that Git configuration, that I kind of briefly, I did that convoluted video of showing my DOS version of SIT, and we're even going through and analyzing, there's some undocumented bits in those so-called feature bytes. You get that system descriptor table back, that IBM used for meaning something. You have very uncommon bits within that, like, hey, the info panel is, present on the system, or even the very generic of the second 8259 interrupt controller present, the real-time clock present. Yeah, that's going to be on just every system that's out there. It's going to have a real-time clock built in. But we're going through and trying to analyze some of those bits. We're seeing some really interesting things, like one bit that's set, that feature byte 3 bit 5 that IBM has on like the Lacuna planar has it set, but the Bermuda planar does not. And those are both, you know, planars that you can find in the MUL 76 and 77 of the different types. The 9585X doesn't have that bit set, but the K/N version of the MUL 85 does. And it's why IBM did it that particular way. And so graphics card benchmark, and I've heard that I think before, and I intend to go through in particular the VGA chips from IBM need a little bit more study, at least I think, and so in particular to the PS2s, there's not a whole bunch of graphics options. I want to say it at times. There's some later times where some of the stuff was expanded, or even when IBM did it, the 8514/A, they did that video in a different, effectively a different format, and so I'm not discounting that, but I think I would, I'll probably need to study how the graphics card benchmarking, and we may see that a little bit with the the benchmarking I'm planning. There's the MUL 56 and MUL 57, and the lower end MULs of the 56 and 57 have the SVGA video, which is actually quite good for gaming. There's later on it was discovered there's a VESA driver, and that video RAM could be expanded. The later models, or the higher end models of the 56, 57 have XGA2 video, which IBM related at that time of being their high-end video product. And so there were some ET, and the best place to go there is even looking at what is up at the Arden tool, and ATI did some other boards. Those I'm trying to think of which one it was that had the ET3000 or ET4000 video board. And it's even funny because I've got some video boards tucked away that were for the RS6000. And they're microchannel boards. And they're fancy. They're just loaded with video RAM. They have these extensive video coprocessors on them and everything else. And you can't use them on PS2s, despite them being microchannel. And so I have a few of those around to maybe we can get into angles. I do have RS6000 stuff, by the way, too. Now, and yes, to get a tour of all the IBM kit, you have behind the scenes. And of course, I'm understanding kit, being from the British stuff, or the talking about all the IBM items that I have, and really a lot of that is so scattered and halfway organized in a way, and I'm trying to go through and organize that a little bit better, to where, yeah, that's going to be a very involved thing, rather than going through and showing that stuff, because really, truth be told, for a lot of like the PS2 line and the even in particular the PC server line that kind of coexisted or was at the end of the microchannel stuff, when IBM started going in and getting PCI involved in things, even ESIA into the systems, I've got nearly every system there. So it's just basically if IBM produced it at that time, I've got it tucked away somewhere. Mostly, and my original intent was to have one working system and having enough parts and pieces around to be able to build a second system, but to keep that first system operational, maybe that second system for display. There may be some end results of what we're trying to do, the end goals of getting actually a physical museum set up. And I'm sure at the time that we go through and do it, a lot of that will be virtualized or able to be viewed online. But that's going to be a little bit more of better representation of a tour to see the items there that I have. I do intend even some of those very heavy systems. I mean, it'd be great if I could go and pick up one of my PC server 720s. And these things had up to 6 CPUs on them, corollary bus, so you didn't have to match the CPU steppings or anything like that. You could even have 100 megahertz CPU Pentium with a 200 megahertz Pentium with MMX. It didn't matter to the system. It used those processor cards for the level that they had, and but that's a heavy machine. I need to get really more in the sense of that later studio, like I'm talking about, where I only have to bring it up from downstairs, and I can open it up and show that. And by the time I'm complete with it, I can go through and move it back into where I've got it situated. And in that basement area, I mean, I have a lot of the stuff stored. I'd like to go to the point of developing and gain those systems. A few of them, even the ability to run from down there in that location and connect up those. So I wouldn't necessarily even have to move them up the stairs. But I would need, for the size of the PC server 720, I would need a little bit where I could put the camera further away because it's a large system. It just didn't work for the little bench that I have here and the camcorder of being able to just put it up on the bench behind there. And I had thought even rather recently about the aspect of those AS400s, those 9404s, of when I go through to move those around, of them being about the same height as the bench here and everything, of putting them in place. But I'm just so limited in the room here that I'm looking forward, and just this has been a recent thought of the last few days, of how I can go through and develop that other studio area that has at least I have the ability where the camera sits back a little bit of ways, and I have more of a place to go through and to work with that with that space to do that. Yeah, I agree that the industrial system, and especially for the 520, you know, it has a smaller version of the same motherboard and everything else, and it had different levels for the 320 as well. And that PC server line, that developed into the Netfinity server aspect. All the 300 series of the PC server became the Netfinity 3000 series. The PC server 500 level became the Netfinity 5000 series. The 720 or the 704 and of PC server became the 7000 series for the Netfinity. And yeah, I like the color scheme. I've even got and the same thing for the industrial computers was the same sort of color scheme as the PC server line. And I've got some of the industrial systems that I've yet to pull out for that are IBM, and the ones that are going through and they're the repurposed PS2s, that PS2 planar in an industrial case, or whether it's something else of some other board that IBM developed for that industrial system. I've got a number of those, so really a lot of the stuff, I guess, and it's so much of a generational level that I have. There'll be a time to see that stuff that's what I'm trying to work towards, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a change of format of the studio and other things that I have here before I'm able to do that. I think I've got to go through and expand to get in that other studio arrangement before it becomes a lot more easier for me to work with. And some of those items, in particular, like the PC Server 720s, and I have a couple of those around. I'd hate to say a few. I probably have enough parts to make up a third unit. That's the case. I've got all the internals and everything else. But going through, and that will be even a long process of going through and showing the components of what those are. But I had the main unit I had there. I had 18. The 3 banks of hard drive, the RAID configuration that I could have on the 720, and I had like NT Server 4.0 loaded. I even have to see of how much those drives have gone defunct now. If the RAID arrays are even consistent or anything else. I didn't really have anything stored on the RAID arrays, but even whether some of that functions anymore. And those RAID cards have non-volatile RAM for holding the configuration, and that would be something I would have to rework, those non-volatile RAM modules, to go through and even to hope that has a modern equivalent, or to be able to work them like the Dallas 1287 chips, where I just go through and add external batteries, probably what I would have to do. But it is my intention to go through and to show some of that, but I have to come up with a little bit better studio arrangement, and then that'll be as the point of going through and moving those items and trying to get them more of in a museum level setting. And I think it'd be, I realize in this world, and especially the things that we've had going around for the last 2 years, that has interfered with a lot of the tourism level stuff, or the ability to go through and visit a physical museum and see stuff right up close. I think those days are a little bit behind us, and it's gone into a little bit more of a virtual aspect. But I think I'm still looking at developing that with other people, that aspect, to have a physical museum setup. So, and we're getting close to the hour, wrapping up here. I thank everybody for going through and viewing. I think I had enough of a time. Even going in from this week, I didn't have a settled topic that I was going to go through and talk about. And I decided to open it up a little bit more to gain a little bit more feedback and saying some of the things of what my intent was, and getting back into trying to get a little bit more organized and work with things. I just wanted to throw out just a couple links. For, as I was talking about earlier, that Git configuration or the system descriptor page, that's the page I'm talking about expanding. With talk of the video stuff, of course, anything really of that aspect, PS2s especially, you want to go to the Art tool. This is a listing of all the, typically all the microchannel adapters for PS2s. There might even be some things in there that are for the RS6000 or, in rare cases, able to be used on one or the other. And so that's a good place to look when you're browsing around for if there was like an ET4000 based microchannel card. Well, I may even have one in the drawer here. I've got at least some of my microchannel adapters organized to that level. I've got memory boards, and then my third drawer down of a file cabinet I've just got off screen. I've got the video boards, and I can probably, oh yeah, it's right there on top. That's the WinSprint. Where do I have the one? I was thinking of something else though. And I've got, in this case, I've got IBM adapters mixed in with others. Oh, I even have some of the Emotion. Maybe it's this one. Okay. And see, this is how I like being able to lay my hands on items right away. So we can read. I had to make sure so there's an ET4000AX, and that's in a microchannel adapter, and Hecho in Mexico. That's called the Ergo MC. And Ergo MC. I'm trying to find. I've got also the Illuminator. Oh, okay, there we go. Is that the same one? Yes, it is. So there's the page on that. Yeah, I'm seeing your comments come up just right at the time of that. And it's got this. Here's the RAM DAC. I'm trying to go through and so I'd have to look at the page. Okay. So this has utilities, drivers, all that. But these EEPROMs are, by what I see there, look to be where they're they're not imaged. And I have the same versions as what Tom has listed there. And then there's that, I don't know what that STB 250, I don't know if that's what part, that probably is, I guess, maybe a microchannel interface, microchannel bus interface chip, maybe something of that nature that ties that to the microchannel. What's that label say? Okay. So, yeah, there's that. I ultimately I reached in there for the and I pulled out the WinSprint card 2. Back that off a little bit for view, and that's got a lead that I don't know if this goes maybe back to the planar VGA or something else maybe. It's interesting for that these adapters, you know, the Ergo MC is 16-bit, but it doesn't have auxiliary video or anything like that. That extension off the back of the board. This WinSprint, it is it's ultimately 32-bit, but it's cut for 16-bit capabilities. And that is I'm trying to think if there's other ET4000 chips though. But I have to remember to get it in a good view. But these are some of the more, and probably rightly in this day and age, a little bit harder to locate these boards. But I've got a sampling of those around, and certainly I don't have everything, but I've got quite a bit of them. But yeah, the chips. Okay, so the chips and technology chip on the microchannel sound blasters. That's a microchannel interface chip, and there is documentation on the Ardent tool, but there is I don't remember if it's organized necessarily. I thought at one point there was a page that had all the microchannel interface chips listed. I've discussed this more on the SIF news group. If you search through on the chip numbers and that, you'll find information. For the Sound Blaster, the chips and technology of the and chips and technology had actually several chips they did for microchannel interface, and it was and probably for the one on the Sound Blaster, it was just the generic low level one, and that's just for tying those electronics, because the Sound Blaster itself, that ultimately was an 8-bit design, or you could view it as even lesser than the ISA bus of those chip components, and that was basically just tied into the microchannel bus made to operate just as it did under an 8-bit system like an IBM XT. So that the chips and technology, those were, and they weren't the only one to do microchannel interface chips. That information, there's even data sheets that the Ardent tool on those chips. And that's probably a good video topic that I can do at some point to, I think I talked about a little bit in the past in a previous video, but going through those microchannel interface chips, as I can probably go through and cover those on video. So yeah, and just getting back to the like the Ergo MC, and you talk about the pictures and things like that of it. I'll even have to see. I need to go through and probably get that EEPROM copied while I got it out, and go through and maybe I can get some pictures of it too, because it's diagrammed very well in that, but we don't have the pictures. And so I have the adapter right at hand. I could go through and start getting my camera bed set up to go through and do photos. And that's something I've got kind of backlogged too. I want to get do a lot of photos. So with that in mind, I mean, we've gone over the hour of the live stream. I'm not set in stone for you know, how long I do that, but I generally like to hold it to an hour, just to go through and do that once every week and get the feedback, and just kind of show in that live stream format of what is what I'm trying to do. But I think it's probably be good to go to the point of closing the stream. There's other things that to start working on, and maybe I can focus on that for a moment. And I appreciate everybody stopping in to go through and participate on the stream. Hopefully I addressed enough of the questions and the responses of getting that feedback. Just I like doing this once a week to go through and get that get feedback from people, and have them having the ability to interact with me via this mechanism. So I'm going to go through and just say, you know, thanks for tuning in, but that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.